Happy New Year, everybody, and let's begin this year with a bang. An organ firework, a piece which is requested more than any other, and to many people it's the most brilliant organ piece ever composed, and yet it's a piece which I have resisted making a video about literally for years, and that's because it fills me with total horror. The problem with musicians is that they try so hard to make what they're doing look easy that people think it actually is. So today I intend to set the record straight. I'm going to take you to a quiet village church and I'm going to demonstrate to you exactly why one famous organ piece happens to be this organist's worst nightmare. It seems so strange to begin not from a field edge or a footpath, but by the side of a very busy road. There are simply no footpaths leading to today's church. In fact, we can see it on our right-hand side and it's totally isolated. St. Mary's Church seems to be the only remnant of a lost village. Where did it go? And as I was driving in, it was all the more eye-catching for being so lonely there. Just off of this busy road between Sherborne behind me and Dorchester in that direction. I've come to this church to play one of the greatest organ pieces ever written. And I think that we should have some peace and quiet here in order to do that. I can't wait. My words become quite ironic when I experience the full force of the traffic noise. 500 years ago, I expect this place was a rest for the weary traveller. But nowadays it's barely a flicker to most as they journey onwards in the manic chorus of modernity. Still, a notice board reminds us of all the creatures who live here. And further on, crooked gravestones tell of worshippers long gone. Holnest was a Saxon village with a Saxon name, Holly Tree, and the holly still grows here. But the villagers have long gone, probably during the Black Death, when they fled to safer ground. Only the ancient church remains, solemn, lonely, but immensely beautiful. I am always inspired by village churches and their settings, but somehow this one tops them all. The bleakness, the uninviting landscape, but simultaneously the peace. And I can guarantee that I have this place to myself today. That amazing feeling when the door is latched, the wind disappears, and so do all cares of the world. Welcome to St. Mary's Church. This is a building which lay almost derelict for many years, but now restored to its former glory. You will be struck immediately by these pine Georgian box pews, very rare indeed. These predate the Victorians. It seems that those chaps didn't get their hands on this church in the same way as they did others. So this building feels much more original. On the right there is a squint so that those in the south aisle could see almost to the altar, but not quite. And then this beautifully intimate chancel where you can see right down the nave to the west end of the church, and below my feet, right in the centre, here lieth the body of Mr. John Trenchard, third son of Sir Thomas Trenchard of Wolverton, who deceased the 21st of February 1678. This is a grand memorial, isn't it, with the coat of arms, but it's not the grandest to have existed in the precinct of this churchyard. There is a ghost outside of something much more monumental, and if we take a look near the church entrance, we find a photograph. What appears to be a surreal sketch is actually quite real. In the ample churchyard is the astounding object which has made Holnest a place of some notoriety. This object, described by one critic as of marvellous hideousness, is a colossal mausoleum to a local squire. It's almost as large as the humble church, which is overshadowed by its vulgarity. I lift my photograph up to the scene, and the strange vision begins to take shape. This ghostly mausoleum was built by John Sawbridge Earl Drax, the local landowner, in the 1800s. He was extremely rich, and he was an atheist too. Apparently he built this tomb to obscure the church. Drax died in 1887, and he was laid to rest here, but his family left no support for the tomb's upkeep. By the 1930s it was falling apart, so the Bishop of Salisbury granted a special order for its demolition. Nowadays, only a white stone marks the spot, and scorch marks on hot summer days which reveal the foundations. On days like this, I feel almost too cold to play, but we must press on. As I make my way into the south aisle of this church, we find the pipe organ. This instrument was brought here in 1979 from a nearby redundant church, but it dates from perhaps 100 years earlier than that. It represents everything you would expect to see in a village church when it comes to music. This organ clearly just has one keyboard, you can tell, because the console area is very small. And it has a very dinky pedal board. Those pedals simply help out the hands if there are large stretches. For example, if the bass line is very much deeper than what your left hand can achieve, then you need the pedals to help you out. It looks like a wonderfully kept instrument, and I believe it was built by a firm called Henry Bevington and Sons, based in London. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look upon my organ works, ye mighty, and despair. Today we've already been blasted by cold wind, the flurry of traffic forcing its way past the church, and the desolation of the tomb of an old squire. You would be incredibly surprised to hear that the piece of music which fills me with dread is actually one of the happiest. It's Widor's Toccata, the final movement from the Fifth Organ Symphony. I have played for lots of weddings and it's requested very often. But I'm surprised I managed to play it that well at Holnest Church, because it's fiendishly difficult to play on a village church organ in circumstances such as these, in cold weather, in a dark environment, an instrument with a tiny pedal board and just one keyboard. I would love to tell you all about this piece, but first let's just learn a little bit about the music itself. Charles Marie Widor was a French organist and composer, and the pioneer of the organ symphony. Symphonies are normally played by orchestras, so an organ symphony replicates this with just one instrument. Widor wrote them for a massive organ in Paris with nearly 7,000 pipes, and the famous Toccata comes at the end of Symphony No. 5. I'm afraid it's totally inappropriate for a village church organ, but that never stopped me from learning it. When I was first trying to get work as an organist, my dad, who is not a musician, gave me some advice which I'll never forget, and that was this: learn all the best ones. What do you mean by that? He means learn the best organ pieces, so that you can sit down at an organ and immediately impress anybody. And what are the best organ pieces? Well, they're the pieces that non-musicians like. There are musicians watching who have their own ideas about what the greatest organ pieces are, but you can't really dispute the fact that the best music is the music which musicians and non-musicians like equally. And in terms of organ pieces, one of them is recognisable by two notes. I needn't play any more. And the other one is Widor's Toccata. If you can play these great organ pieces, then you can sit down and impress somebody instantly. So off I went, learning the greatest organ pieces ever written. But when it came to Widor, the task was especially difficult. The clue is in the name. Toccata is from the Italian toccare, which means to touch. So it's a piece all about speed of finger movement, virtuosity. It's designed to impress. And that leads us to the question of, why is this piece of music so difficult? Well, let's go back to Holnest and let's break it down. Firstly, the right hand. I took away the music there to prove that this piece is ingrained in my muscle memory. In other words, my fingers literally know instinctively where to go. That figuration continues for the entire 6 minutes of the piece, sometimes in the left hand, which is even more tricky. So it becomes very tiring. And if you're playing in a cold church, the fingers almost begin to jam up. So it starts to become almost impossible to play it accurately. For that reason, if you're requested to play it for a church service, you may find yourself getting into difficulties halfway through. The second problem is that muscle memory is bad as well as good. I remember playing that piece in Salisbury Cathedral once, about maybe 15 years ago, and my school teacher said, "You know you're playing that bar wrong." And I can remember the exact bar because it has an arpeggio figure which is over an octave. That means it's quite tricky to play with your fingers. So I had learnt it wrong and I couldn't unlearn it. I couldn't delete my muscle memory and start again. So you can see how this piece begins to get very complex. The third problem is the left hand. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, it's brilliant, isn't it? But the problem is, it's completely different to what the right hand's doing. So we've got a right hand going do 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 do, and a left hand going boom 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 boom. At the same time, it's the patting your head and rubbing your stomach situation, isn't it? So it's all about coordination. As I said before, if it's cold, then playing all of that in time becomes extremely difficult. And also, there is a tendency to speed up when you feel nervous and you're trying to play something quite complex. So the music kind of loses its regularity, and that's why so many recordings of this piece are too quick. We now turn to the final issue, and that's what happens below the console, the bit nobody sees and many people don't know exists, and that is the pedal part. When you play the organ, you play with all four limbs at the same time. You learn not to look at your feet. Instead, they instinctively know where to go. It's a bit like driving. But on very small organs, the pedal part has to be constantly adapted. We just don't have all the notes there that Widor intended. So, as I'm playing, I'm constantly adjusting the music to make it playable on an instrument it was never designed for. This is mentally exhausting, especially under pressure, and eventually it gets the better of me. Widor, it seems, is my unfinished symphony. Or is it? Lots of you will have heard Septimus before. It's my answer to all of the problems of Widor's Toccata. I wrote it a couple of months ago in a church on the edge of Wiltshire at Longbridge, Deverell, and I named it after the old organist there. What I've done to make this piece is I've taken the figuration from Widor's Toccata, I've slowed it down slightly and added my own theme and bass line so that the toccata figuration kind of becomes a repeating motif, or in musical terms, a carillon. I would love to end this video by playing the recording I made of Septimus, which was actually played at my sister's wedding. I hope you enjoy it. If you do, as always, remember to subscribe to this channel. If you're watching on the television, you will need to look at your phone or your iPad and you'll see the subscribe button there. It costs nothing to subscribe, but it ensures that you're one of the first to see my next video. I film these videos alone and I do all the research myself. So if you enjoy them, you can also leave me a PayPal donation if you'd like to. You'll find the link directly underneath this video. If you click on that, it takes you to my PayPal donations page. And from there you can leave a small contribution if you'd like to. Thank you so much. So we end this New Year's video with Septimus, but first, a poem. I met a traveller from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read which yet survive, stamped on these lifeless things. The hand that mocked them and the heart that fed, and on the pedestal these words appear. My name is Ozymandias, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair." Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away. Cheerio.